has there been any conversation on public transit and figuring out some ways to say, hey, can we get some public transportation additions?
We're the only one. Yeah. St. George is
like some covers and a seat at our
right.
bus stops. There's like half of them don't even have seats or a cover.
I know, they don't.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the 435 podcast. I'm your host, Robert MacFarlane, and I have Jeff Watkins, my partner, riding shotgun. Today, we had two guests, Mayor Michele Randall of St. George City and local celebrity Macrae Heppler, talking about what is happening in St. George, covering specifically the State of the City address that the mayor gave just a couple of weeks ago. Lots of great announcements happening in 2024 in Southern Utah. So we hope you enjoy this episode where we talk a lot about those amazing things. Additionally, in the State of the City, we didn't talk a lot about the challenges. So she was gracious enough to sit down and talk about some of those challenges, what we have ahead, what we need to, what are some of the problems and some of those solutions that we have facing us over the course of the next year. We hope you get some value out of this episode, guys. Enjoy it. Like, subscribe, send to your friends and family. Thanks for helping us grow, all of our sponsors and the people that support us. We appreciate you. We love you. We'll see you out there, guys. One of the Hafens, he owns one of like the antique shops down on Santa Clara, and I walked in there and he was telling me all about how basically no one changed the population sign from like 1950 until like 1982 or something like that. It's like time stood still. Like in Southern Utah, like nothing changed. It was just everything stayed the same. You know,
and then 1980s hit,
and then it was like the late 70s and the 80s, and then all of a sudden they expand into Bloomington, and then it just one thing after another, and now
it's been like this ever since.
Yeah,
Bloomington and Bloomington Hills had to be annexed into the city because their developers are like, yeah, we can't do this. Take it over.
We need a full city government. So you're just, as we grow up, right? As these cities get more complex as we go, identifying what's the most important thing, taking us back to the state of the city. So in a short phrase or a short paragraph, what's the state of St. George City?
The state is good.
Okay.
I mean, if it wasn't, we wouldn't have people just wanting to be here, right?
Clamoring
to be here.
Yeah.
So we're doing something right. But with that, the growth brings a lot of growing pains.
Yeah.
You have to keep hiring more people for every department. Every department gets short-staffed. The road expansions, I get emails all the time, and someday I just need to just come and read all the emails I get. It'll blow you guys away. But
that'd actually be super entertaining.
I've heard some of your voice.
It's like the Twitters. It's like the mean tweets. It'd be like that. Mean tweets, only like mean letters to the mayor.
I think we'd have to go beep, beep.
Yeah, bleep
beep.
it out.
Yeah, bleep it out. So
that'd be pretty funny, actually. We should totally do an episode like that.
We're building 2 new fire stations right now, and Little Valley Fire Station was just finished last year.
Yeah.
So you think about 3 new fire stations within a year and a half, 2 years' time, when your last fire station, I think it was the one in Dixie Downs, that was built years ago, and all of a sudden now we need all these stations.
Do you think that's a product of the population growth? Because as a percentage goes, it doesn't seem like the percentage has had this like real big jump, because we're still limited based on dwellings, right? There's only so many houses we can build every single year.
But we've sprawled.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Desert canyons.
Desert canyon, desert color. When you get too far from a fire station, your fire insurance is
and everything.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so you have to have a station close by to bring that rating down so that those people have a decent.
And it's a timing to be able to get to,
and just the timing of the issue, being within so long, or the distance from a fire station.
Yeah, they just calculate it based off of just distance. So then the state is booming, right? for basically the full hour of the state of the city. It was just one amazing new thing happening after another. Honestly, I was like, wow,
I had so many people afterwards that were like, I had no idea. Even Zach Renstrom, the Water Conservancy District, he's like, I had no idea what you guys are dealing with. And I'm like, yeah, it's everywhere. Every time Macrae gets on Facebook, then he's got some other major blow up announcement to make.
Yeah.
The biggest one.
He's watching the Flyers beat the
They're down 1 right now.
They're down by 1
to the Warriors.
Did you graduate from Dixie High?
Yeah.
Me too.
That's right.
Dixie High Flyers playing Snow Canyon Warriors in the basketball tournament right now, state tournament. This episode will drop on the 5th, so we'll have the City Hall, like the neighborhood meet and greet. So if you're in St. George, tomorrow, March 6th, 4:30 to 6:30? 6:30, down at Town Square.
No.
Just kidding. The Dixie Ballroom.
The new Dixie Academy Ballroom.
Dixie Academy Ballroom.
The name for the 3rd floor of the
Children's Museum. Invitations used to say 3rd floor of the Children's Museum.
Yeah,
now
was terrible.
We got a name
Dixie
for it,
Ballroom.
which is good.
Dixie Academy Ballroom. It's sweet.
Yeah.
That is sweet. So you're going to meet up there, see the space, but we could talk about City Hall and what the plan is, give feedback. No changes are probably going to be being made at this stage.
No.
But at least understanding.
Not structural changes, but we have some civic space in there. Like, what do you want to see in there? Would you want us to rent it out? Would you want just like nonprofits to be able to have
office space,
something in there? We have a really big outdoor gathering area. What would you like to see there? There's a big atrium. It's going to be nice.
Yeah.
It's not as big as the county building, but it's been made for growth.
Good.
To get us hopefully down the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it would get us down 44 more years. I won't be around. I won't care.
Yeah, we wanted to go for a while. We wanted to get its time out of it.
Because at first we were just going to remodel our current city hall.
Uh-huh.
And after we doing the math on that and how much it would cost, we had no room to grow.
Yeah. You end up stuck kind of in the same spot.
Yeah. We need to just build new.
Get extra space, build new. Utilize that building for the police and other city services. So those are a couple of highlights coming up. So the City Hall, Dixie Days. So the announcement of Dixie Days. So it's I said it's the Southern Utah or the St. George Heritage Days. Is that best way to describe? If somebody's like, what's Dixie Days? What's Dixie Days?
Yeah, our heritage. So, Swiss Days happens in Santa Clara, and it's all about their Swiss heritage.
Peach Days
is the same, and Cotton Days. And so we just thought Dixie Days. And I talked to Ralph Atkin, and he was so excited about it. And I said, so do you and Rick want to share this up? And he said, absolutely. He said, our fruit could be the pomegranate.
Good.
There you go. Good.
It's the only thing that would grow in the water with the high alkaline.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's like, we could have a Dixie salad contest.
That's right. Seriously.
Pomegranate salad with some pecans.
And all the different kinds of. I was on St. George Word of Mouth, which obviously is a group that gets brought up often. Someone put, please put a Dixie salad recipe here. And then it got into like how many different kinds of Dixie salad
300,
combinations.
300 comments later. It's just exploded.
It's crazy. And every family is so different.
Yeah.
That's
cool though.
Funny.
That is cool.
So I think that's going to be an exciting one. I couldn't help but.
We're going to do it in conjunction with the rodeo. So we're also meeting with the Lions Club because that's a huge staple. And this year it's their 90th year of the Dixie Roundup.
Oh, cool.
And so we're hoping like on Saturday.
That's so crazy.
The parade route will end down at Town Square, and then we'll have all kinds of things going on. Mm-hmm. This year it may just be a day thing, but as it grows, we can expand it. And I've already had a couple of corporate sponsors say we want to sponsor.
Yeah,
we want to help.
Cool.
So it's not taxpayer dollars going to it, but
so this is the this is the stirring the pot question I have. Does this come out of the feeling that, because this came up during the election, the feeling like the city didn't do enough to voice their opposition to Dixie State going to Utah Tech, and this is a way of saying, you know, hey, we it wasn't that we were against the heritage of the word Dixie or, you know, that conversation, and this is a way of saying we're proud of that heritage, and we want it to be.
Part of it is I've said on the radio before when that was all going down, the name change at the university. You know, I was against it. I wrote every single senator and representative at the state. Every single one of them, I sent them an email, and I only heard back from like 3. And one was Walt Brooks, my own, which was good, and explained to him why it meant what it meant to me. I have 3 great grandparents who came here, one to Santa Clara and the other at the encampment mall. That's where they stayed. And their names are on the monument down there. But, and it took us so long to get the Sugarloaf that federal historic status, and the hoops you have to jump through, because you have to give the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And so back in the early 80s, and I don't remember this because I was a kid and probably not even paying attention, but we had, what was it called then? But they had a huge Confederate flag all the way across the boulevard, and it kind of went along with the theme, like an antebellum theme, you know, and we had to put that in the documentation that, yeah, there was some minstrel shows, there was some blackface, there was this and that, but we're not racist people. This is what Dixie means to us. Yeah. And this is what the early pioneers thought it meant. Yeah. And so you send in tons of documentation, and it gets state approval, and then it goes to the feds. And so the feds finally approved it. And same as the D on the Hill. Yeah. So, and we wanted to do that to make sure that, I don't know, in 20 years, a new mayor and council just don't say, hey, blast that off of there.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think in doing my own research as to like the history of the word Dixie, where it came from, it does seem like there was a period of time in which it was used in its negative connotation. Right. But before that, for 50, 60 years, it wasn't in any way, shape, or form in that way. But over this, it was almost like a 15, 20-year period. It was like there was this, it was like a cultural movement towards, not the best version of who Southern Utah is. And then it quickly changed. The pendulum quickly swung away from that, pretty much in the 90s. It swung completely the opposite direction. And so I think of, as we look back in history, we don't want to forget that history, right? We gotta recognize, where things might have gone wrong, and how do we redeem ourselves from those moments when things don't go the right way. And so that's why I like this move towards the Dixie Days and celebrating the heritage, because we don't need to sweep it under the rug.
We don't need to be embarrassed by it. And that's one thing, that the interpretive trail that we're going to do up to the Sugarloaf.
Do you have to do an interpretive dance as you go along the trail?
No, but it's going to be so cool. You'll have QR codes, and that it'll bring up like a certain family and what their contribution was to Dixie. Oh, nice. Or,
that's cool.
If you have visitors and they're like, why is this rock called Dixie? Mm-hmm. Well, this is the Sugarloaf because it looked like a sugarloaf in the old, at that time. And
because it was shipped from India,
the Dixie Cotton Mission, and it'll just have all those explanations. And like I said, at the State of the City, Steve Snow and Lyman Hafen, you can't get 2 more better historians that know every detail and story there is to know about this area. And so they've worked so hard. I was assigned with that task when I was on the council, and then when I became the mayor, I asked Greg MacArthur and Natalie Larson to do it. And so Natalie's been doing it and meeting with Lyman and Steve. And then the county even kicked in money because they thought it was such a good idea.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting way of celebrating it. The street festivals and stuff, our weather, getting outside and meeting with our neighbors, it fits in. So that'll be
great timing.
It's great timing.
For
September,
sure.
the rodeo. I've heard a lot of people that are like professional bull riders and stuff. They don't like that it's an amateur rodeo, right? Like
it's a PRCA rodeo.
It's a PRCA. Okay, there was somebody was telling me that you had to be, or maybe it was you could only be a professional and ride in it. You couldn't. They don't ever have any amateur ones.
No.
And that's what it was. And they wanted to be able, because it's so unique, like being right in the center of town and how many people can fit in the stadium. And it's an outdoor rodeo where a lot of those professional rodeos are inside these days, right? So it'll be cool to add some stands to that and really make it a fun event during that
Shout out to the Geobon.
Shout out to the Geobon.
Because you will not have cement bleachers in there anymore.
Yeah.
Which will be fabulous.
It will be much nicer. It will be much nicer.
And we can do more things in there.
We can. We can hold more events. Maybe do an amateur rodeo in there one time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
They have a spring rodeo that somebody from Stephen Wade does. And I don't know if it's I know it's not affiliated with the PRCA, but I don't know if it's affiliated with somebody else. But
does the Lions Club own the Dixie Sun Bowl?
No,
or
the city does.
The city does specifically. Okay, they're just affiliate. They kind of help facilitate it.
Yeah, and
so that we got lots of Parks and Rec stuff going on. I'm gonna skip past that because that's not as fun, at least for me. I'm not as really interested in
I love it.
There's some
really
cool stuff. There's cool like
Along with that
pickleball
is
courts and stuff.
Yeah, I mean the parks, the Sun Bowl for me. I grew up playing football there in 7th and 8th grade, and I feel like I haven't been to anything there except for the rodeo since then. Like legitimately.
When I was in high school, that's where we played all of our high school games.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's such a historic stadium, and I'm a really big sports guy.
Yeah.
And I think there's some really cool things that could happen in the Sun Bowl if we do remove the dirt and put the concrete down, so we can bring in the dirt, but then remove it so that we could have all types of different sports in there. Right. I think it's be pretty cool.
Yeah, pickleball tournaments.
Pickleball,
they have a little stadium. They have like a little stadium they did out in Little Valley. It's like a championship
the expansion
level pickleball court for all those.
The soccer fields.
Largest pickleball stadium in
What do they
Utah
call
now.
what do they call people that are like heavy into pickleball?
Pickleballers.
Just pickleballers.
Like
Sure.
There's not a cool like.
I just got into it.
You just got
I'm
into it.
3 months
Really?
in, and I'm
He's 3 months in.
so
You're hooked.
I'm so hooked.
He's hooked.
It's the funnest game.
Well,
I just
anybody
played
can
yesterday
play
for
it.
an hour and a half.
That's what's crazy.
Yeah,
is
everyone
you
can
see
play it.
little kids to old people.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about golf too. And that I feel like we've just nailed it on the head with both golf and pickleball as part of like the blood of St. George now, because they're two sports that literally anybody could go and play. The thing about pickleball is it's even easier for people to get into, because golf is a very, very difficult game, and most people just get frustrated and end up stopping. Pickleball, I mean, it's really like in between tennis and ping pong, and anybody can be somewhat competitive.
Yeah, you don't
right?
have to be running around the court
No,
and stuff,
not like
right?
tennis.
Especially, yeah, it's definitely a fun game, and we've done a good job of building up a big following here, but giving them the resources to do it. Those courts are full all the time.
Even in the summer.
It's 5 a.m., 6 a.m. You can't find
sun
a court.
goes down too. It fills back up.
I talked to builders, and a lot of people, one of their very first questions when they're building like kind of a bigger house, like custom homes, on like some of these bigger lots, and one of the very first questions is, can the backyard fit a pickleball court?
I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for there to be like a noise ordinance that comes down, because it's like the
Listen,
clink, clink, clink.
Listen, they're starting to make balls that don't make sound.
Oh, interesting.
They are.
And they
because I want it
feel
in my
the same.
backyard.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Maybe it's the paddle. Is it the paddle or is it the ball?
I heard it's the ball.
I mean, I guess it's the chicken and the egg.
I wish I would have thought of that.
Yeah, seriously.
Right?
For real though.
The biggest question I got on the state of the city, inundated Macrae.
Was what?
The film studio.
Yes.
The film studio.
Well, yeah, it's because they put it on
Entertainment
KSL and then they
Tonight.
called me an influencer, and I'm like, oh,
You
my
are an
God.
influencer.
You are an influencer.
That's pretty much all you are.
Embrace it. Entertainment Tonight, ET Online,
Really?
CNN. They're
As if we weren't on the map already.
right.
Wow.
People Magazine.
Oh my
I
gosh.
just referred them all to Joyce Kelly.
Nice.
You're
That's
like,
great.
You don't want to talk
Great
to me.
I'm like, no, we just announced it. It's not true. But
It's not true.
We just wanted,
That's
the
confirm it, and then so let me.
I had a ton of people ask about that too.
I-
It was great timing. I'm glad that it worked out.
I
the
even
way
got
it did.
emails, people wanting to know how they could work there.
Oh yeah, I've had.
I don't know.
I know. I've had the same.
Call
I had a-
I'm sure they'll
Burgess.
have an ad. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have some ad of hiring, right? But
Today the trailer drops.
MacRae.
Yeah.
MacRae, just remember you signed up for this.
you did.
You consciously made
I
this
just
choice.
hate the
Did.
word. I don't like that word, but it is what it is.
The funny thing is, I remember going back when we were having breakfast all the time. We were talking about ways to like promote because
Yeah.
Saline, right, had come down
Yes.
and we're choosing between us and
And
Asheville,
mhm.
right?
Yep.
And one of the things was like they didn't feel like this was the type of community that their employees would want to stay in.
Right.
And so in one weekend, you're like, how could they possibly know in like one little
Right.
trip out to decide whether or not this would be the place? So we started talking about like, how do we highlight, how do we feature, the things that are coming up, man? And it was like birthed in those moments, dude. And you took it and ran
MacRae
with
will
it.
announce things that I haven't heard of.
You're like, wait, what? How did
I know.
How
I'm
did that pass me?
like, seriously? But we do have that pinky
Yes,
promise.
we do.
I know, Trader Joe's.
Trader
so I'm
Joe's.
really
If they
hoping you
choose
guys
St. George,
loop me in.
If they choose St. George, right?
They will.
Or
Why wouldn't
Washington,
they?
because
No,
Kurt
they'll-
Ivey says something different.
Well,
I'm just saying, he said it on
love
my show.
Kurt,
He said
but
something
no.
totally different. He's
No.
like, I got the CEO. I'm talking to the CEO right here. He showed me.
yeah, well,
I don't
We'll
know.
see. But it is fun. No, I really enjoy it. It's super fun. And I'm glad that, because that was part of the conversation too, was like, how do we give a red carpet to,
Yeah.
And that's, I think has leaps and bounds been better as well. And I'm just glad that I'm just a small piece to opening like all the reasons why to be here. It's fun when someone I see randomly is like, hey, I moved here because of your videos. And I'm like, says
So
a
we
lot.
can
That's
bring the
crazy.
growth
It's almost
on
crazy.
you.
No. My Aunt Tracy says, she's like, would you stop making those videos so people stop coming here? And I'm like, I promise, it's a small percentage.
MacRae, I was also thinking you probably are kind of the gatekeeper for a lot of the hate mail too, right? Like,
yeah, that's
Yeah,
nice.
you know what I
get-
mean? Like a lot of people that are complaining about
I'm starting
whatever.
to get some of it. I get a voicemail a week now about where the water's coming from.
Is David?
that's
Is
what
it
I was
David
gonna bring
Johnson?
up,
David's calling.
They're different area codes. They're not
You?
even.
Shout out to David. I know he's listening to this one. Hey, buddy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
Does he listen
anyway.
to you faithfully?
I don't think faithfully. He didn't watch. At least I didn't. I don't think he did. He told me he hadn't watched any, and then I talked him into watching one. So then he shared a couple of the other ones. But personally, he has a very good perspective, and he's willing to voice that perspective that a lot of people just aren't willing to. They think it, but aren't willing to voice that perspective. It doesn't mean he's always correct, but he also just has a hard time conveying what it is, right? And so then he conveys it in a way that's not the best way and isn't digested well.
The message comes off better if the messenger knows how to deliver the message.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I think his heart, he does have a big heart. He is a nice guy. I will
Yes.
attest to that, at least from my experiences with him.
So with the state of the city, we sat down in about the 1st of January. It's we, meaning David Cordero, our communications director, and the city manager, and myself. And we're like, what are some of the things we want to highlight? And this year there was so much. And some mayors would want to get up there and be up there for the whole hour. I don't. For one thing, your voice starts your mouth gets dry. You need a drink. You just need to rest for a second. And I'm like, let's let MacRae do the major announcents. Like,
Let's have him roll a video.
let's
Just
have
roll
him
it.
roll a video.
put
Everybody
The timing worked out.
We'll put that link in
perfectly.
this episode too, so you can watch the Southern Block. It's the
Yeah.
latest episode. I guess you probably actually already done another one.
I
since
did
then.
one out here around Black Desert last
yeah.
week, but
Black. Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it was perfect timing. When David called me, it was actually funny because he had called me a few weeks prior, and I completely spaced. And then he called me. It was like 2 weeks from the state of the city, and I was like, "Oh no, yeah, let me just think on it." And then immediately, everything just kind of came together for the South
Fell
Block.
right along.
Well,
Because
and then on
Kevin Costner's actually was announced at the What's Up Down South
Right.
Summit. And I'd been planning on talking to Brett Burgess about that. So
Mm-hmm.
that just worked out. The Megaplex was like that day. That
Mm-hmm.
day it got
they
announced.
called me on Saturday and they're like, "Hey, you're announcing our Megaplex at your State of the City," and I'm like,
I am?
And I know Kelsey
Oh,
Berg
that's
really
funny.
well. And she said, "Yeah, your people have been in touch with our people." And I'm like, "Who are my people?"
I have people?
And I have people. And
Oh,
so
that's funny.
I said to David Cordero, Kelsey said we can announce that. And he's like, "I got to call Macrae."
Let's add that on there. So the Megaplex
That's
is going in
funny.
by big shots.
Yeah, I think that's going to be big.
That'll be big. All that commercial, I feel like it's just this pent up, we had over 2020, 21, and 22, we had this big push on residential, at least in St. George, but across the county, right?
Yeah.
A lot of push. The builders, we were able to put out a lot of dwellings, which was needed, truthfully was needed to help relieve supply and demand, which drives price. Like, as much as people don't like the growth, we need to have the dwellings, the rooftops with doors so people can live in, to keep prices from just continuing to
Correct.
explode. And we've had a pullback just in 2023, but all of that residential and all that population ability then allows for commercial,
Absolutely.
right? And so
Without those rooftops, the commercial's
They
not
don't
going to
come.
work.
it's not going to come.
And so, people were really excited about In-N-Out Burger too.
Yes, they were. There was.
I thought it was funny
cheer
that
in
you
the
started
crowd.
in that corner. You started with Del Taco. You started with Del Taco. I was like, why did he start with In-N-Out? He started with Del Taco. Like In-N-Out was like,
But
Well,
there was
well,
some applause. Did you hear?
There
for
was an
Del
applause.
Taco?
I know for
Les
Del
Schwab.
Taco and In-N-Out. No, it was because those two are like signed, closed on, and In-N-Out,
Ready to roll.
And In-N-Out basically is too, but they're technically in negotiations, along with 4 others that actually the day before when I sent out the video to be approved, because this one I can't
keep adding.
I was like, I can't have anything in this. This is going to go more viral than normal because
Yeah.
of the state of the city. I don't want any misinformation out there.
Yeah.
So I sent it to the group to approve it, and they're like, hold on. You can't say these 4. So then me and Caden the night before, we're like scrambling trying to cut out
Oh, okay.
a
That makes
part of
more
that,
sense.
but In-N-Out was able to stay in there, luckily. So
Yeah.
anyway,
That's
it was just
a
funny.
good one. I think for people in that Green Springs exit, because that Green Springs exit is such chaos,
Oh,
In-N-Out
it's
has a
horrible.
big to do with that.
It does.
Truthfully, that place is always
that
packed.
place is packed.
Always packed. And there's only one way to get over there, and you got to make a left to get there. It's 2 lefts
For
to get
sure.
there, which backs up traffic, right? And so I think this In-N-Out being right there, that's going to be
I
helpful.
think it'll be big. I think also if the retailer that's going there is as big as I think it is, I think it'll also pull people away from that.
So we're talking about exit 2. If
Exit
you're listening
2.
in, exit 2, the Sun River exit.
Sun
Big
River,
Shots
Desert
Golf.
Color.
Yeah, desert color.
Yeah.
In-N-Out will be there.
Do
you're
you
just
ever? So there's this big thing going around about 15-minute cities and how they're communist and all
Yes.
of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, But my whole thing is we alleviate a lot of our traffic when we bring some commercial to neighborhoods.
Oh, I'm glad we're talking about this.
We talked about this. We actually talked about this on one of the other episodes. I think with I was talking to Trent. Was it Trent Staggs? I was talking about this, but we were talking about how logic chains, where we're like, because A and B are true, then we'd like jump to like X or Z, and we're like, this must also be true. And like we
Right.
miss like all these other things in place. It's like, okay, if I was going to control a population through like authoritarian, like, motives and direct control, I would make everybody live in this little confined
And what
area.
do you do? Put electric fences around them?
Well,
so they can't
eventually,
get
but you wouldn't
out?
do it at the beginning, right? You got to lure them into these cities with In-N-Out burgers
Yes.
and bicycles, right? That's how you lure people in to be able to contain them with a fence with electric. Exactly.
No.
But yeah, to your point,
So Little Valley is the case in point.
Case in point.
No commercial
riled up
out
about
there.
this.
And it was because the neighbors this was way before my time, but the neighbors came out in full force. We do not want commercial out here.
Yeah. Stacey Young, if you listen to the Stacey Young episode, we cover in depth because he takes me step by step through it. He's like, we laid out this plan and then it was chaos.
Exactly.
Police had to escort them out of the building.
Yes.
Because
it was
the
awful.
city was so upset
and
about
now
it.
if they had a Smith's Marketplace or a little grocery a gas station, I mean, they wouldn't have to use River Road or 3000 all the time to get to where they're going. And it just helps alleviate traffic.
I'm out there.
And it's not, we're trying this secret 15-minute city. It's just like we're trying to.
Convenience.
It's convenience. Yeah. And people really just don't, even though they live here, they don't get our topography. That we have I-15 that cuts us right down the middle. Us and Washington, the only two cities that get cut right in the middle because of I-15. And then we've got a river. And then you got all these bluffs.
After plateau.
So how do you move traffic? There's only certain ways you can move traffic. And so if you don't want to, last Friday, my husband had to have an MRI, and he has to do it with sedation because he's extremely claustrophobic.
Yeah.
So I had to drive in there.
Even talking about it, some people are like, they start to freak me out.
He cannot. I mean, if everybody in the room wants to be punched, then stick Tony in an MRI. But as we were driving home, it's noon on Friday, the day of the parade.
Oh, yeah.
It was insanity
Circus.
on River Road.
Circus.
Just
for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And that's when I shelter in place on those weekends, you know.
Yeah, there's a national emergency.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. You guys all enjoy it and leave your money here, and we're happy to have you here. But just the traffic like that with neighborhood commercial alleviates a lot of that kind of traffic.
Yeah,
totally.
And it's this, my wife and I, we were talking about it. We were going through the parade, looking at the homes, and we can't help but think, we came from Orange County in 2015, and it was still like that Christmas. I've told the story a bunch of times, but that Christmas, Christmas Day, we went up to Zion. We drove right in. We drove all the way to the end. We got out on a couple of different stops. We saw like 5 people, like 5 cars, and spent the whole day on Christmas Day up in Zion. And 3 short years later, they have to have trams. There's so many people that come there, right? And so, like, I'm not from here, right? I didn't grow up. I wasn't born and raised here. But the idea is to be like, man, I kind of don't want to see it grow. Like, you kind of, there was a lot of
We're doing a bus system to Zion. The state is the one that said,
well, so that bus, it was also driven a lot in part and heavily based off of Springdale, and them saying we need people to work to help, alleviate these people that are coming, whether we like it or not. They'll literally stay in their motorhome on the side of the road if we don't tell them to go to this other place, right? It's like you have to deal with it in some kind of way. And now that, when we're in this moment to where we can't stop any of that from happening, how do we handle it, right? How do we go about handling it? We can't just say enough's enough because it won't work that way.
Won't work that way.
It just won't. They literally will park out in the desert in their RVs until they can multiply offer.
They're doing it.
In 2020, there was thousands of people parked in the desert waiting we put 4 offers in on a house, but we can't get one.
So we're just sitting here until we get one.
Dry.
Yeah, no, it's the truth.
See trailers like that down
Long
on BLM.
Long Valley and south of the Utah Arizona border.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
so
crazy.
There's no stopping it. So then it's okay. Well, how do we deal with it, right? So the bus systems, but roadways are expensive, right? And then we talk about the budget and how much we get taxed and all those things. But putting a road between river that connects all the way to basically convention center, that's a muggy marsh, right? It's not gonna, a road isn't gonna easily just go in right there.
It's going to be an expensive road, and then you have to abide by the EPA rules, and you have to be out of the river during spawning season and all these crazy hoops you have to jump through.
Did you hear that they found desert tortoise tracks in Graveyard Wash?
Yes.
You heard about that?
Yes.
That is a big disruptor. That's a big disruptor. I mean, if you're listening and you don't know anything about it, it's a big disruptor to the secondary water.
Nobody's seen any tortoises there.
I know, but even still, they're not from here. No. They are not from here, people. They were brought here. There was probably some here, but the Mojave Desert is massive, and we're on the very edge of it. The fact that we're having to be the habitat for a massive reserve.
Calm down, Rob. It's just turtles.
Oh my gosh, it's just turtles. And I like the turtles. They're cool. But really,
I know.
we need the reused water. We need to be able to do that.
They will.
Northern Corridor too. There's so many topics with that.
Yeah,
and it's all the 3-letter agencies from the federal government that just hold you up.
I've heard this a bunch of times, the Northern Corridor. It doesn't make sense to me on traffic relief. It doesn't, in my mind, I can't imagine what it's actually going to relieve other than new growth. Like in my mind, what like Solente and some of the developments that are now going in there that have kind of planned up to the barrier of where they really can build on that side of the town. I don't think that really relieves much of Green Springs. Just personally, I just don't think it's going to do that much.
I think St. George Boulevard and Red Hills Parkway. If you've been on either of those, I mean,
I use Red Hills Parkway almost every day because I live out in Ivins.
And I feel like that it will, I think, help Red Hills Parkway getting from Ivins to Washington. Don't you think? In my mind, like if I was looking back at it, I would have just put the exit by the mall, like made sense to me. And then if I'm using 1,000, right, I would be able to just get on that frontage road and I don't have to go down to the boulevard. I can get on Red Hills Parkway right there. And like coming from Ivins, I don't see myself going all the way to Green Springs to get out to Coral Canyon. My parents live out in Coral Canyon, right? Mm-hmm. I don't like if I was to track it on my phone, I don't see it being any faster. Now, having Washington Parkway go all the way out there, it is definitely some kind of relief route. And with Black Desert going where Black Desert's going, that's what I was going to mention.
I think that probably is going to relieve at some capacity. People coming from I-15, I think it could relieve some. But I thought, thinking of order of what I would have done, it seemed like the off-ramp right there at the mall made more sense to me. But
it's been on the master plan forever and ever with the MPO. And so you've got the Northern Corridor and then you got the Western Corridor.
And the Western Corridor, I think, would be massively helpful. I think that would really be helpful because there is still more development land out on that side, especially for St. George and what little is left of Santa Clara. And so, especially if the gorge, something happens in the gorge, being able to use 91 and go around, like that corridor to me, like if I was the one in charge, that corridor seems like would be more impactful to the city right now than the Northern Corridor. But who am I? I'm not a transportation person, so. But that was just my thought.
No, it's a good thought. That's a good thought.
So, and I don't know what
transportation
holds that back.
in general.
We're talking about the Northern Corridor. The county attorney and the commissioners are coming to our work meeting this Thursday to talk about the Northern Corridor because newer council members don't understand how long we've been in this fight.
Yeah.
Forever.
It's been a long road. It's been a long road.
I mean, infrastructure and water are just two that just have to. It's just a constant grind.
Yeah. So we have like 10 minutes left, so I can stick with your timeline. So 10 minutes left. Like
keep the little desert tortoise tracks away from these projects.
Oh my goodness, that one is not solid. It's not. That is really not helpful. We've been so
reservoir.
Blessed with so much water these last 2 years. Like
we could have filled up Warner Valley last year and this year.
I know. Well, but even just having Graveyard Wash, the singular ability to use the secondary system that we've been laying, we've lined up the bricks perfectly over almost 10 full years of like having all these developments have this secondary water system. That is contingent upon having a reservoir at Graveyard Wash. Yeah. And if we don't have that, we can't do it.
It is heartbreaking to go down to the wastewater treatment center and watch this 48-inch pipe just pump water down the Virgin River going to Lake Mead. Yeah. Because we have nowhere to store it.
Yep.
I was talking to one of my he's probably listening to the show, Brian Hiltz. Shout out to Brian Hiltz. He deals with poop every day. He does massive infrastructure projects for cities all over the country. He's kind of the face for his company to sell cities on what they do. And he says that a lot of cities, they literally will drill down and create an underground reservoir almost directly beneath their water treatment facility, and they just fill water up underneath their water treatment. There's probably some geological reasons why specifically we can't do that.
So anything south of the Virgin River has such a huge high alkali content that you would have to have a reverse osmosis system to get all that brine out of there. And then where do you put the brine?
And it's super expensive, right? And this
Way
was
expensive.
and this was the value of Desert Color when they went out to that development, because water, these lagoons were this big selling point. And I remember everybody kind of throwing this big old fit about that. And we sat down with a couple from the Water Conservancy District, and then the developer at the time. I think he was a Blue Diamond. Maybe he was with Clyde Companies, but they were talking about how, the water that they're using for these lagoons is perfect for these lagoons because of the salt content and how it already is. It's non-potable water anyway.
But it was so salty, they ended up still having to build their own treatment.
It's underneath the parking lot in Desert Color's main area, right? There's these massive tanks that treat the water there. So it's pretty fascinating. If somebody thinks that there's negligence going on when it comes to water in particular, it's like people from the desert, they're not idiots when it comes to the water, right? We've been working on this water thing for 100 years.
We have, and I thought one of the best things out of the state of the city was to show people even all of these connections we've made since 2017.
Oh, yeah.
We're still down 250 million gallons that people have quit using. And
7,000 connections we've added. And we've saved over
250 million.
100. I think it was 113. I'll double check it, but we'll drop some facts in the comments here. But this was part of that. Was they removed 280,000 square feet of sod just since 2022 and saved 17.8 million gallons of water just by removing the sod. And
8,200 connections added, water reduced by 250 million.
Oh, you were right. I was wrong. Way to go. 8,200 connections, not 7,000.
So with that's huge kudos to our residents who realize that we do live in a desert, and we have that turf buyback program that the state implemented and that now the Water Conservancy is doing. And the majority of people who have taken advantage of that live in St. George.
Yeah. Well, and there's been 1.1 million square feet of grass removed.
Yeah, we're making good progress on that, right? So if I was to say, okay, here are the biggest challenges, the water is going to continue to be a challenge for all of us. We all have to continue to do our part, both in the conservation side, but also in creatively thinking about solutions to add to it. If you need to go sweep up some desert tortoise tracks, don't tell anybody, but maybe we sweep that up. Maybe just adopt one. Give money to the National Turtle Reserve
Foundation. Do you think
Foundation
maybe somebody has prints?
I don't know. Honestly, I talked to one lady. I saw one lady at the Tonawanda Nature Center who was talking about the turtles and how it was this fear pitch to these kids about how important this turtle is and how if even stepping on the dirt, how it disrupts their habitat and how you're going to kill them. And if you touch them, it'll die. And I'm I saw one painted orange the other day. I'm what? He was fine. He just kept moving around like he was fine. I'm what do you mean you can't touch them?
They're dinosaurs. They live for hundreds of years.
Know. They have literally one. There's really only one predator, and it's the massive hawks and crows. It's raptors. They're considered.
Stop the turtle propaganda, people.
Yeah, for real. So I wouldn't put it past some of those the conservationists. So water's going to be a challenge. Traffic, it dominates the news. It dominates Facebook. Traffic's going to be a challenge. Outside of adding these additional roads, has there been any conversation on public transit and figuring out some ways to say, hey, can we get some public transportation additions?
We're the only one. Yeah. St. George is
some covers and a seat at our bus stops. There's half of them don't even have seats or a cover.
I know they don't. And
can we use Can we use some of the Parks and Rec stuff for that? Can that be considered recreation?
I don't know if that could be considered recreation.
I don't know.
But
they're only it's only $70 to put a seat at a bus stop, and half of ours don't have them. Why you're laughing? But I'm come on, we can do better.
Have a bench with a cover that says Eagle Gate Title, and then have a bench with a cover that says 435 podcast.
Well,
okay,
we can raise some money. If the city, I think, if the city supports it too, could there be
raise the money, we'll build it.
Interesting. I like this
challenge.
We'll keep
accepted.
We'll keep going. We'll keep going with that.
I our
don't.
DTAC meeting, our DTAC meeting last week. So that's Dixie Transportation Executive Committee, and we've put trail counters out now because we hear people.
I like
all the
that
time
idea.
saying,
I heard that. Yeah.
We use no one's using the trails. Why
I've
do you
heard
keep
that.
building?
I'm like, what are you talking about?
And so let me grab my phone because I took a screenshot because I was on Google Meet, and I was like, okay, there were almost 50,000. So they started counting February 1st, and this was February 20th.
Okay.
And there were over 49,000 people that used the trails.
Wow.
And in the Sunday of President's Day weekend, there were over 7,000 people that day that were using the trails.
Wow.
It's insane.
And they can track if they're pedestrians or bicyclists.
That's cool.
And there's more pedestrians than bicyclists right now.
This is how the conspiracy theorists start. They're like, see, now they're putting cameras and they're tracking our. They're going to see how many unique individuals, and then they're going to know where we live.
So
how it
true.
starts.
But that is such a great point. I'm glad that you shared that because I hear that. I hear there's no one at parks and I hear there's no one on the trails. And I'm like,
Come down to the park I
What
live
do you
by.
mean?
It's
Yeah,
like an
the park in
anthill.
Little Valley is, it's crazy.
Being able to use a statistic too of other areas, like when I hear people say, "Oh, well, public spaces or parks, that's where crime happens." I was like, maybe in another area because now there's not young families or active people.
That are
they
just
got a
there.
park where the community doesn't do that. But that's not this community.
No.
This is a completely different community. People live here specifically for that.
It's the complete opposite here. And I've had those conversations with our bike patrol officers. They're like, no, they wanted the GEO bond to pass. They're like, we need to refurbish the older parks. We need to get in the newer parks because it does help with crime.
Yeah.
It goes down.
Yeah. I was torn. I could see both sides of it. It's a net positive from my perspective for our community, especially hearing those numbers. I think those are helpful. Those would be like,
That's
those are
crazy.
social media posts like, hey, this quarter we had this many people hitting these trails like
In 20 days.
in 20 days. That's wild.
20 days.
Crazy.
In February too. It's in February. Challenge. So traffic, water, public safety. We're building two fire stations. The police officers got some new weapons. So criminals beware.
Yes.
They got deadly accuracy now.
Yep. Fiber optics on them.
How are we doing, thinking about the challenges moving forward? Is there some progress being made on how do we get raises? How do we, raise the money for those? What's the challenge look like ahead for that? And I know you're kind of out of time. So if you want to.
So we rely so heavily on sales tax. And so that's what's really nice about seeing so much of this commercial coming into St. George is sales tax revenue.
Big factor.
It's a huge factor. And our public safety, almost all of our employees got a raise last year. They get merit increases plus, the what's it called?
Salary?
Cost of living raise,
Cost of living.
And they all got decent raises. And we want to keep that going, but that's all dependent on sales tax because even though we're growing, people think, oh, you've got all this money in property tax, and it's just not true. We're under $12 million a year in property tax.
Does that film studio bring any additional revenue? I'm actually curious because going back on this bill, the stadium bill up in Salt Lake that I'm not for, by the way.
That is,
And I'm
don't
not
even get me started on that one.
If Don Ibsen is listening, I don't think he is. I don't think he will. Supposedly he's yes on it, and same with Vickers. So we have two representatives in our area that are voting yes on this.
But to Don's credit, he got us $15 million for the airport tower.
Listen, I'm not going to discount a lot of the stuff he does. His as a philanthropist, as a guy who is giving back to the community. I probably don't know another name. Maybe Stephen Wade would probably rival as far as total dollars donated. But that guy will open up his wallet and give money to almost anybody, right? Am I wrong?
You're right.
Like
Today,
he's a big heart. However, as a representative, it's like,
I would
hey,
love to
we
know
need
his
you.
reasoning for the yes.
Because even if he votes no, but it passes anyway, we still need like Southern Utah to be represented by Southern Utah. Like we don't have the biggest voice, but we still need to.
So the meeting I was at before I came here, it's Legislative Policy Committee. So that's with the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And because I'm on the board, St. George has 4 voting members. Most cities just have 3. And that bill came up today, and I was shocked at how every city is against it. Every city except Salt Lake. They're like, and so it's Google Meet that you're doing, and I raise my hand and I get a message back. That's not working. We can't. Can you just type your comments? And so I'm,
You're 10th in queue.
I'm 10th
It'll
in
be
queue.
15 minutes before
But I said, Washington County, our TRT money is the third largest in the state.
Okay.
Third largest. Park City and Salt Lake beat us, and then Washington County.
Expectedly so.
I said,
as they had an
have the
Olympics
Utah
there.
Jazz brought any economic benefit to Southern Utah?
Not yet.
No.
But the answer is no.
No.
The answer is
the
no.
answer is no.
Same as this MLB stadium, and we'll get no economic benefit from it. And Greater Zion says 71% of all the people that come and stay in our hotels are from Utah.
Are already Utah
so
residents.
we're taxing our own people
Yeah.
to pay for a millionaire's stadium.
Yeah.
Gil
A
Miller's-
billionaire.
Billion. That's what I meant, billion. She's done great things, but
They've done amazing things.
come on.
But
And this goes back to that, like Don. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that he hasn't done great things, and I'm glad he's bringing money in for the for us being able to have the airport dispatch be done here, right, rather than in California. As far as
yeah, it's big.
being self-sustainable, right? We want to be able to
Right.
control the things within our own borders. This is not a lack of control, right? Is stuff like this and that.
The hoteliers
very
are
frustrating.
just up and
Oh, yeah.
But I just
I've
can't
talked to
help
a few
but
of
I
them.
can't help but think it's like when these types of taxes and this is where, and I'll just briefly talk about, the parks, the geo bond, it doesn't raise taxes. However, it's a tax base that is being allotted to go towards this particular thing. And then you have these TRT taxes where they raised hundreds of millions of dollars from these TRT funds to help, foot the bill for a lot of the amazing things we have in Washington County. But it's almost 50% of it goes towards marketing for more
So
people to
dumb.
come here, right? And
So
that's
dumb.
state legislation. So
Yeah.
we can't say, hey, this is causing an undue pressure on infrastructure and traffic, and we can't reuse that money to solve any of those problems.
that's
We can
what
only
we
use that
need.
money to market for more people to
Right.
cause more traffic problems.
That's what we need that 50% for. Let us use that to mitigate everything that
Yeah.
tourists are
Like if-
doing to our roads.
Let's
and
say
on our police
let's say they
department
want
and
to.
everything else.
This is where we get these big bills. So I'm on a soapbox for just a second. So they raise the TRT funding by the tax level by like 6 times. It's like 6 times the amount of what it's currently done. Then we should be able to renegotiate how we use our allotment of TRT funds, right?
Right.
Like if you're going to do that, and now our businesses are having to levy these taxes and prices are going to have to go up for people to come here, then we should be able to reuse some of that money and not have to just pour it back into marketing. We should be able to use it towards infrastructure, maybe police officers, because we have all these people, but they need to be patrolled. Like, it seems to me that we should be able to use some of those funds for some of those things, but we're so limited right now on state legislation as to what we can use that for. Like, as a representative, can we use it? Can we use it as a tool to get more money? I don't know.
It makes no sense because our county alone will be sending anywhere from $7 to $10 million a year
Yeah.
up to a Major League Baseball stadium.
Or
that-
NHL. I think
It's
they
almost-
think it's MLB, but the MLB's
But-
not even adding more teams. Like, since when?
But
No, MLB's coming to
NHL
Salt Lake.
yeah, MLB is coming to Salt Lake. But who goes? Where are
I
you
don't
going to
think
go
that's
to watch
official yet.
hockey?
Yeah,
I'm going
go
to
to
Vegas.
Vegas.
You go to
that's
Vegas
the
to watch
thing.
hockey.
That's what I was just going to say. My point.
Hockey makes more sense.
We
than
we
baseball.
are Salt Lake is almost 3 times further than my
Yeah.
Vegas trip, or well, let's just say double. I'm gonna go to the Vegas Knights. I'm gonna go to the baseball games. I'm gonna go to the Raider games in St. George. Like a lot of people that have Jazz season tickets, when the NBA gets to Vegas, I'm sorry, but I think a lot of people are gonna take the 2-hour drive versus the 4-hour drive,
Absolutely.
right? And I'm so great. I'm a diehard sports fan. You
I
can't
love
find
baseball
someone
so much.
more, and baseball especially for you. It's hard to find someone more addicted to sports than me. Ask my wife. I would love all these sports teams in our state. I would love the NHL in our state. I would love MLB in our state.
Football,
But
whatever.
yeah, but at the cost of and if you want to tax Salt Lake Valley Absolutely,
And they
because
choose to.
direct
And they
benefit.
choose to. I still don't like
But the whole state.
I'm against the government,
Reno,
you know, like paying for these things.
Reno isn't paying for the Vegas Knights,
Yeah.
or the Raiders. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, and that's
They
where
didn't
I don't-
tax their people for any of that.
the
Did they?
Vegas people paid for the
And
the
this is-
Raiders Stadium.
And this is the example, right? So coming from Anaheim, so we used to go to Angel games all the time. The city of Anaheim put billions of dollars into the Angel Stadium for them to call it the Los Angeles Angels. The city of Anaheim put billions of dollars into keeping this team afloat. They could never compete. They never won. And then they changed the name to the Los Angeles Angels. And they're not
Right.
even in LA.
They're not even in LA.
They're not even in LA County. They're in Orange County. And now they're going to leave. They're talking about leaving and getting out of Anaheim after the taxpayers.
Maybe they're going to go to Salt Lake. The
They
Salt
were
Lake
gonna just
Angels.
go. They were going to go to Tustin, which is the city down the street, right? Like all these, like we bring in these sports teams with this idea that there's going to be some economic benefit, and the government needs to stay out of that whole thing because it ends in the team leaving because it's never going to last forever, and it's this endless shelling out money. It's just so crazy to me. Anyway, we got off on a tangent, and you got to go. This was fun. The state of St. George,
Thank you.
booming. Thank you for being
Booming.
the mayor. I would never do that job.
Me either.
I can't imagine.
Me either.
I can't imagine why anyone would do the job. So I thank you so much.
Because you love your city. That's the only reason, and you're terrified of who might do the job.
Well, and we appreciate all the work that you put into it.
Well, thank
It's a hard
you.
one. In the next episode, you're
I
just
know
going
how
to read the
much.
mean emails that you get.
I don't know
Mayor's
if I
mean
can.
emails. I'm gonna
I
come.
don't know if I can.
We'll bleep it out. It's YouTube. You can put it anywhere. We can put anything on there. It'll be great. Okay, guys. Thanks for coming on. I know you got to go.
Thank
We'll
you.
wrap it up.